by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised.
Billions of people just living out their lives, oblivious. Choice is an illusion created between those with power and those without.
I drink your milkshake. I drink it up.
Thank you, John Larson. I receive your kind words on behalf of all of our courageous members of the House of Representatives who want the best for the American people. And what we can do that is best for them in the next 24 hours is to pass affordable, accessible health care for all Americans. The best for all Americans is to have 32 million more people to have health insurance in our country. The best for...
Piece of stinking filth.
Shh, say it again, Shal. This is AJ of the InfoWars. Listen to the Shaliak. This is Alex Jones of InfoWars. Listen to Shaliak on the Cold Reality News and Report.
This is the coolest thing I have ever seen.
Well, hello there!
In the week that was from RT, anger rages for a second week following Donald Trump's decision to recognise Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Clashes between Palestinians and Israeli police have caused deaths and injuries. President Putin kick-started the withdrawal of Russian troops from Syria during a surprise visit after military chief...
We are still at Nahl Oz buffer zone and tensions are increasing. The ambulance is here. Taking the street.
Throughout the week, RT's been hearing impassioned reaction to the resurgence of violence in that region.
People can open the Bible and to count how many times Jerusalem is mentioned there. They will find out also that Jerusalem is not mentioned even one time in the Quran, not even one time. People will find out that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel since 1948.
The whole world is condemning this action because simply it's against the international law. It's against the framework for the peace process. It has forfeited the United States forfeited its position as a broker to the peace process. And I'll tell you something, the Israelis have killed 4 Palestinians in the past 2 days in peaceful protests, while no Israeli was killed. There was an injury in an attack in West Jerusalem.
Everything is a lie, first. Everything my opponent says is a lie. There were 3 terrorists killed in Gaza Strip, which has nothing to do with the protests here. Because Gaza Strip, they fired rockets, and they forget about it. They just forget that they fire rockets at Israeli kindergarten. When people who are followers of Hajj Hamid al-Husseini, Hitler's collaborator during Second World War, those who created Fatah before 1967 to destroy Israel, when the same personalities come and teach us morality, listen, come on.
They cannot be defending themselves while they are illegally on somebody else's land. That is unacceptable. What they've done, what they're doing, what have been doing since 1967 is an aggression. And with your other guests,
this has never been your land. Never been your land in history. Whose land is this?
You were born in Russia.
Donald Trump kept his promises. And he is trying to do his best. We are grateful, but the issue is not Donald Trump. The issue is these people go around to murder innocent Europeans, Russians, Americans, and we are here in the Middle East, the only democracy, the only really light in this very dark environment.
Reaction to President Trump's moves reverberated throughout the Muslim world, where leaders have lambasted his, quote, null and void decision. The Turkish president declared he wants his country to open an embassy to Palestine in East Jerusalem now. And on top of that, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation convened an emergency session in Turkey on Wednesday, calling for the international community to recognize East Jerusalem as the Palestinian capital.
We condemn the U.S. decision on Jerusalem because of its great bias against the historical and permanent rights of the Palestinian people in Jerusalem.
Important, I want to point out, to ignore some of the distortions.
The United States decision to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel is a dangerous one. It will threaten security and stability and frustrates efforts to resume the peace process.
The president is committed to this peace process, as committed as he has ever been.
Every possible step must be taken to prevent the implementation of this illegal action by the U.S. administration. However, there is one question that sticks out here. What factors and elements made it possible for the U.S. president to dare to take such an outrageous act?
That type of rhetoric that we heard has prevented peace in the past, and it's not necessarily surprising to us.
Despite the heavy criticism from Arab leaders and European allies too, President Trump doesn't seem too concerned by it all, as Caleb Mopin reported in the week.
Well, it's now the time of year in which Israel celebrates Hanukkah. And this comes after Donald Trump's dramatic decision on Jerusalem, which may seem like a huge gift.
We wish you a very happy Hanukkah. And I think this one will go down as especially special. And right now, I'm thinking about what's going on and the love that's all over Israel and all about Jerusalem. The love that's all over Israel.
Trump went as far as actually praising himself for the all but controversial move. His point? His predecessors only made promises where he actually delivered.
Jerusalem is still the capital of Israel and must remain an undivided city accessible to all.
As soon as I take office, I will begin the process of moving the United States ambassador to the city of Israel as chosen as its capital.
I continue to say that Jerusalem will be the capital of Israel.
So why is Trump so gleeful about his decision? Has the international community praised him for it? Nope.
Very dangerous decision.
We do not agree.
We clearly disagree.
These decisions are unhelpful.
From the European Union member state side, this move will not come.
So, is it what the American people want? Well, not according to this poll taken ahead of Trump's decision. 63% of Americans say that they oppose the move. But it's popular in Israel, right? Well, not with all Israelis.
I think of all my friends that live in Jerusalem that are in much greater risk than they were before.
I think it will cause a lot of people deaths and a lot of violence.
I think it was a reckless decision and a reckless time to announce it.
He's like a man who is playing in comedy films or in gangster films. So he's taking his pistol suddenly and he's shooting.
All of my friends told me the day he announced it that they're pretty much scared to go back to Jerusalem because they don't know how it's going to be and they're scared to leave their houses.
But Trump did win over some of his harsh critics in the Democratic camp.
Jerusalem is the capital of the state of Israel, something the United States Congress has reaffirmed and a fact of history that cannot be denied.
I support the decision to recognize Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel and to move the U.S. Embassy there. This decision is long overdue and helps correct a decades-long indignity.
There may be benefits for him personally. He may be tipping his hat to his base and saying, this is a campaign promise that I made. He sees it more important for his personal legacy and for his supporters to do this, regardless of its effect on world opinion, regardless of its effect on the United States and world opinion, and regardless of its effect on the Palestinian people.
The world is not happy with the move. America is not happy with the move, but Donald Trump thinks it's terrific. A year ago at his inauguration, Donald Trump said that from here forward it would be America first. Well, it's starting to look like maybe it's Trump first. Caleb Maupin, RT, New York.
In more of the big news of the week just gone, Russian troops started returning home from Syria after President Putin announced it was mission accomplished during a surprise visit to a base there on Monday. It was the Russian leader's first trip to the country. Putin told personnel at the Latakia air base their work was complete after the Russian Defense Ministry had earlier declared Islamic State was now defeated in Syria.
To the Defense Minister and the head of the General Staff, I order the start of the withdrawal of the Russian forces to their permanent base. And if the terrorists dare to raise their heads again, we will strike back with the strength they've never seen before.
Well, here's a quick timeline of events for you. In 2015, when Islamic State was on the rise and controlled back then half of Syria, a request was sent to Moscow for help in the fight against the extremists. Using Syrian intelligence, the Russian Air Force launched surgical strikes on terrorist positions, dealing a significant blow to ISIL's infrastructure. That aerial support's considered one of the main reasons for the campaign's success. Many other forces also joined the effort to liberate cities, of course, and also the surrounding regions.
This week on Cold Reality Radio. Has Armageddon already begun? Well, if it has, you can thank sellout puppet Donald Trump. Franken replacement in Senate is former Minnesota Planned Parenthood vice president. Let the population control continue. Orwell's dystopian CCTV surveillance state comes to life in China. And who is next? Pentagon acknowledges secret UFO investigation program. Bitcoin hits 19,000 all-time high after burst of Asian buying bigger than Wells and Walmart. Uber engaged in illegal spying on rivals and ex-employees. Since feeding the homeless is now illegal, a group carried AR-15s to give out food. It worked. Forget Russiagate. The real scandal is Israelgate. Canadian pharmaceutical billionaire and wife found dead in Toronto in suspicious circumstances. CBC gets list of forbidden words: fetus, transgender, diversity. Virtual reality robots will do space work and defuse bombs where humans can't venture. Venezuelans see Bitcoin boom as survival, not speculation. Police officer shuts off dash cam during drug dog sniff, appeals court. This is fine. They say it is fine. The Carnegie Council calls for global governance to regulate geoengineering. New York City wants to audit the powerful algorithms that control our lives. EU agrees clamp down on Bitcoin platforms to tackle money laundering. Right, for our safety, right? Yeah. Conspiracy theorists were right. Corporate media finally forced to admit America armed ISIS. And their friends financed them. That and more on today's edition of Cold Reality Radio here on the UCY.TV Broadcasting Network. Sunday, December 17th. It's 10:39 on the east coast of Nightmerica. And it's business as usual as we spin out of control in the United States corporation, the empire that was created by dirty money and dirty people and scumbags, and will be destroyed by dirty people and scumbags. Evil. And we go back to, what we've been told about America and what America is, and our founding fathers and all this other hogwash bullshit. And if anybody's spouting the, George Washington was this great fucking guy and all these other people were these great people, no, they were not. I'm sure some were a little bit better than others. We constantly hear about Jefferson, and we constantly hear about all these past figures that we should admire. We're always told who we should admire or who we should hate, and accordingly, we go along with it. Not me, not others, but we are suckers, thumb suckers. Okay, this is a thumb sucker nation. They start off lying to us early on about Santa Claus and how Santa Claus, if you're not good, if you're not, coercing you into being a good child, or you won't get anything from Santa Claus. I mean, how fucked up is that? How entirely destructive is that to start off life? Well, there's worse things you can do, like give your child over to people with the stethoscopes and white coats and wasps known as nurses, so that they can jab your child full of filth and garbage and basically set a ticking time bomb, and whether it turns into cancer in the first 10 years of their life, if you're lucky to get through those years, you'll maybe get cancer in your 10s or your 20s or your 30s or your 40s or your 50s. We spoke with Patrick Jordan last week about lot and serial number of vaccines that get, that at one time, or still to this day, you can't have everybody getting the same thing. It has to be some kind of trickle there. But see, right away, if you're talking to a brainwashed minion of the system, they will totally turn you off, because they're thumb suckers. They have no fucking clue what's going on. They believe that the system was created for them. And it's a vast system where anything can happen. And sure, people, people in your families have worked for a number of years in different areas of the fiction and different areas of their economic chessboard. But now it's coming to a point now where you're not going to be needed. They've written about this. I believe Bill Joy in and around the year 2000 wrote Why the Future Doesn't Need Us. We see more and more of this technology being rolled out every day. The who is that? Sophia, the artificial intelligence. Just the whole deal. And when things go horribly wrong, they'll have that plausible deniability that a chip fucking malfunction, and Sophia just killed the whole classroom full of kids because her chip shorted out. And there's always that plausible deniability. You hear it all the time. You have that ability, or they have that ability, to blame terrorism, to blame all different types of things on these endeavors. the war on terror and the war on cancer, the war on the Cold War, the new Cold War, and I can't help but think that this is there is some sort of collusion at the very top, because none of these things would happen. There wouldn't even have been any accusations of Russian collusion if it wasn't for the very, very powerful entities that exist in all of these corporations, not countries, corporations. You kind of want to believe that there's a good, there's a force for good out there. But we see a lot of the same things happening. The same things happening in China with the police state there, the technology. Orwell's dystopian CCTV surveillance state comes to life in China. We are fast approaching the technological and political realization of Orwell's dystopian promise for humanity. In his classic work, Eric Blair, in 1984, Orwell describes tightly controlled future where technocratic elites have stamped out individualism with total information awareness and total surveillance from the home to the office to the street. And China is just taking it to the next level, as well as what's going on here. The net neutrality, the everybody keeping their hands off the internet. So there was a shift, I wouldn't say a complete avalanche in the neutrality, but I think that it has to be done if you're going to remove these types of and we already see it happening. I mean, if I'm watching it RT on an app or watching RT in some on some platforms, you'll see it just stop communicating, or the browser will crash, or the app will crash. I just go right to the website and stream live, and with apps maybe there's more control over that. But because as I said, with the censorship, WYBE in Philadelphia, I should have called that week when they were getting ready to shut down the live stream of RT America 24 hours a day on one of hundreds of channels. You could totally fit RT France. Like, who the fuck would watch that? But I mean, is Russia the shining light as far as telling the truth? Having programs like America's Lawyer on there with Papantonio talking largely about glyphosate, speaking out about the poison in our environment, and it's pretty obvious. And Patrick Jordan has pointed it out any number of times, and any number of videos and emails from his email portal, that glyphosate, since its introduction into our society, there's been a noticeable change in obesity, food allergies, just any number of different attacks, man. These are just from the vaccines to the geoengineering to the which of course to the thumbsuckers out there, the little babies. They're like They just deny. They're just in denial. They think that we live in this fucking utopia, and we do not. This somewhat version, this minuscule version of utopia had to be created so that it could be destroyed. And that's what we're seeing here. The inner fighting, the turmoil, the sexual misconduct allegations. In the background, we're hearing, yesterday I was having a conversation with a older gentleman, pretty awesome guy, 80 years old, just was an engineer his entire life. Well, not his entire life, but, he's educated. And he's sitting there telling me about all these different things, telling me all about the banking system and, all these different things, the top 3 things that are wrong with, there's no multipliers in America. A lot of our money is going out of the country and not coming back. I don't think China is importing anything. We're importing a bunch of their stuff, but they are not allowing our toxic garbage into their environment. But we've heard that. We've heard those scenarios before, how certain products that we ship out, they look at it and they're like, yeah, we're not, this isn't now. Send it back, burn it, whatever. They don't want it. But America will take absolute poison and distribute it through the Walmarts and just the cleaning supplies in and of themselves. With the, you ever smelled like this Dawn? I'll get like a kind of like a non-toxic dish cleaner, and I won't necessarily want to run the dishwasher at all. I will hand wash all dishes. That's right. I like to wash dishes. I'm just getting prepared for, the new world where there might be, at some point there might be a job washing dishes, and I will be fully qualified to do so. So you smell these Dawns and you smell all these other, and they're just toxic, man. You you can smell the chemicals that are in there, and you're like, you don't want any part of it. But some people are still kind of pig-headed, and they still want to use, they want to run the dishwasher, even though it would take a week to fill it up, and then to wash it, and then all those dishes that might be available if you just kind of wash them after you use them, or like nice little stack of dishes. Anyway, I like to wash dishes, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like to wash dishes with there's nothing I can do about the water, but I can use cleaning products that are not toxic. Oil-based, vegetable oil-based soaps. Unfortunately, they can clog the pipes, and then you've got 2 or 3 inches of water in the tub while you're showering. But major deviation there. The bottom line here is the products that we send, other countries will, or other corporations will look at it and say, yeah, this is okay. Where'd it come from? Oh, America? Yeah, that's poison. There are some corporations out there that will not allow the garbage and the filth and the poisons to be allowed into their space. But as we drift further and further away from what is right and what is natural, there is no God that's going to be like, you've done everything wrong, so now you have cancer. The bottom line here is that we have let these flattering titles, these authority figures, and let's make no mistake about it, where you'll get redacted tonight. Lee Camp will just flat out say that the police officers are killing people in high numbers. Okay, which is something that you could say is happening. But when you break it down and you understand how the system works, is that they're not here, the police are not here to protect you. They're here to protect the flattering titles. They're here to protect the people that have blood on their hands. We couldn't afford to pay the police officers to police for natural crime. We couldn't afford to pay them, but the flattering titles can. So this is why when you see somebody getting the freaking head beaten in, it isn't right. But if you understand how the system works, you are an enemy of the state. And Clint's pointed that out and on any number of occasions. We are at a constant state of emergency, which means war. That's what emergency means to the system. War. Whenever you hear there's an emergency, they're at war with something, and it's usually the people that they extract from, that they steal from. The soldiers that go to war that get poisoned by the burn pits and get secretly and horrendously damaged from the vaccines that they test on them, and then the VA turns their back on them when they say, "I've got this weird thing going on, and like 3 other people that I served with have this really, really weird thing going on," and then the VA just turns their back. And they're so decimated by what was done to them that they don't even know, that they have no idea of knowing, until somebody says, yeah, these vaccines, there's a lot of soldiers that are damaged. Right. But David Icke says the pioneers of a warless world are those who refuse to sign up to fight in the corporate wars. But a lot of these people, the society, the levels of the class societies have been set. So these people, these younger, mostly minorities, let's face it, you're not going to see Mitt Romney or Jeff Sessions or any of these guys. And if there were people at war, I mean, like they say George H.W. Bush were these people ever in any danger? And then you got John McCain, who is supposedly a war hero, yet all the people that served with him and were held captive with him say that he was a songbird, that he spoke, he put a lot of people in danger and got a lot of people killed because of his status. Then you can question, why the heck was he over there in the first place? He's a part of these extended families, these, the bloodlines of the Illuminati. Alex Jones, who does everything except blow George Washington's, in his mind, because he's always talking about how great George Washington was. Meanwhile, he was the first cousins with the king that we were fighting for independence from. It's just all bullshit, people. It's all bullshit. It's just a land grab, and you can't be the first cousin with of the bloodline of these European families that ruled and dominated over the commoners, and be someone completely unique and different, and it's just bullshit. And of course, that's what the American people are fed, a daily supply of bullshit. Like George Carlin probably would have been better off if George Carlin was the first president of the United States. He might have made things a little bit different. But America was taken. It's always been a pirate cove. It was more of a pirate cove back in the day. But we're not taught any of those things. We're taught this bullshit fucking lie about the American revolutions. And then of course the Civil War. Give me a break. Was not about slavery. The slaves were just pawns in the identity politics of that time, much like homosexuals and lesbians, the LGBTQ, this, that, and the other that are of today. The identity politics. But yeah, it was about slavery, and Abraham Lincoln he freed the slaves and blah blah blah. Bullshit. Those lies have been exposed over and over and over again. Lies and lies to get the commoners or the goyim to go along and believe something that is not fucking true, that is not true in the slightest way. The same families, the same banking powers at work 100, 200, 300, 400 years ago. Okay? Using church and the invisible man in the sky and all these other tactics to keep people from, to keep people on the straight and narrow. Separation of church and state, never going to happen. You can't have one without the other. You can. They're like the Wonder Twins from the Super Friends. Gleep Glop and all those freaks. Can't have one without the other. And so throughout time, the Catholic Church and all of these other mongrel scum that decided that they were going to control society and own society by using the fear of God and the unknown and the invisible man in the sky and all these other tactics to keep people to have the fear of God, whereas those that are in charge and the systems and the secret societies, the Masons, and all these other organizations collectivize, pull people in at the low levels, show them this hand, and then at the highest levels where these people start injecting into government and legal and a bunch of these judges, judiciary, and all that other stuff. This is where the power of the secrecy and the control come into play at these saturated levels, where there's a brotherhood, a secrecy, which is where Jeffrey Epstein gets off with 6 months or something in a party balloon prison with welcome mats. And then, of course, as I said, Al Franken's replacement in the Senate, former Minnesota Planned Parenthood VP, the woman replacing Franken, Democrat from Minnesota who is being forced to step down, sexual conduct, is a former vice president with the Minnesota franchise of abortion giant Planned Parenthood. So that's, one goes, and then another minion of the system pops up. New American article. Let me see. Now Minnesota's lieutenant governor serving under Governor Mark Dayton, Tina Smith, first showed up in Minneapolis in the 1980s working for General Mills, GMO. One of the GMO producers, all the cereal, all garbage food that gets produced by General Mills for profit at the risk, at your health risk. In 2003, she signed on with Planned Parenthood, Minnesota, North and South Dakota as the abortion provider's vice president for public affairs, meaning we're not killing babies, we're providing a service. In reality, serving as a high-paid lobbyist, canvassing legislators and other government functionaries for taxpayer handouts. So that's who is going to replace Al Franken. And then, of course, every now and then you'll see these mind controllers called government talk about secret UFO investigations. What's this here? SNL cast member shows off Hillary Clinton tattoo that says hero. A much, it is kind of a weird looking tattoo. Pete Davidson. Come on. The Hill, right? Hillary Clinton is leaving a permanent mark on Pete Davidson. The SNL cast member just debuted a new tattoo of the 2016 Democrat. 24 unveiled what he called his Christmas gift to the ex-White House hopeful on Friday, sharing the image with his more than 450,000 Instagrammers. Come on, Pete. Gonna take your man card away. I had Hillary Clinton. Wanted to get Hillary Clinton a Christmas gift, so I got a tattoo of my hero. Thanks for being such a badass and one of the strongest people in the universe. Come on, Pete. You have fucking lost your mind. You have lost it completely. These people don't even know who the Clintons are. It's amazing how they they don't know and or want to know anything about. I mean, and Trump's no better. He just started Armageddon. So he's a worthless asshole. And Hillary's even more worthless. These people think that Hillary and Bill are, I mean, it just goes to show how completely off the fucking scent and track of anyone who is worthwhile. No, it's not surprising. I'm not surprised. And as I said, the Free Thought Project, since feeding the homeless is now illegal, a group carried AR-15s to give out food, and it worked. Dallas, Texas was the site. Feeding and clothing the homeless in the land of the free has now become a revolutionary act. Luckily, however, there are still good people willing to carry out that act. In December of 2014, the Dallas City Council enacted Ordinance Number 29595, which makes it illegal to serve food to the homeless without jumping through a statist myriad of bureaucratic hoops, including a fee, training classes, and written notices. Just to go out and be able to feed people that are starving. This is an absolute disgrace. And yet more proof that we live in a satanic, dictatorship. Oh, come on. Really? Lama? Really? That's what you get from the thumbsuckers. Really? Yeah, you can't feed people. And then somebody will be like, well, what if the food's bad? Just anything to back up their love and how they love to fucking blow and lick and take it in the ass from authority figures. Because they want to be because they ultimately want to be the authority figure. They say, whatever you want to be, envision it. You have to envision it in your mind, which is really, I think there's some truth to that. You have to envision where you want to be, who you want to be, what you want to do, how you want your life to move forward. And then you have these people like Davison who look at Hillary as a hero. I mean, wow. And then they look at, being a police officer is they've broken it down that it's, as far as like the dangerous jobs, it's like in the 20s in the list. It's like closer to 30, the 30th most dangerous job to have. But the reason why people will sit back and they will praise this, I mean, you got Fox News who does it all the time. You got the local news who always talks about, I mean, anybody getting shot, any kind of officer out there doing it. Sometimes, like if people are just, like, I'll give you for instance, all right? So you're walking down the street in a neighborhood that is known for crime, and what are you going to do? The last thing that you're going to do is you're going to approach people and say, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? They're going to be like, you're in trouble, right? When you have a society that the war on drugs and all this other stuff. A lot of these police officers go and they're investigating some kind of activity, suspicious activity, and then somebody gets shot. An officer gets shot. So maybe sometimes you just got to say, leave people the fuck alone. Leave people alone. There's no doubt in my mind that if a police officer has a partner and they're walking towards something, they're doing something, and one of them gets shot and gets fucking crippled or something, there's no doubt in my mind that that police officer is saying, maybe I chose the wrong profession, or maybe we should have just left those fucking people alone. But politicians get glorified. Soldiers get glorified. Police officers get glorified. And the bottom line here is that anytime you walk outside your house and you get in your car and you get out there on the roads, there is that fine line between chaos, between a controlled environment and chaos, okay? And the people that have achieved, like all of your talking heads, the morning people, not so much Matt Lauer anymore, but he still kind of applies to this. These people will sit there and they will praise law enforcement because they know that there is, and I don't think they know, like really, really know, that there is a fine line between the haves getting completely attacked by the have-nots. And the only people that are standing in the way of the have-nots attacking the haves and or the have-mores are law enforcement. The bottom line here is there's way more have-nots now, and this is the part of the design. There's way more have-nots now, and there's not that many police officers. So what you see with all this authority worship and all this police worship and all this other stuff, okay? All it is a fine line between controlled chaos and absolute chaos. And we are moving towards that. We're moving towards that fine line is being stretched. It's being pressed. It's going to break. It's going to break. So if I'm a police officer, and you saw it in the Batman movie. Remember the Batman movie where Bane took over and he was like, and he did the Bolshevik thing where he turned the people against the police in the city, and well, enough of them to create a problem. And then they were like, "Where's Officer so and so? Where's this person?" No, he didn't come to work today. He didn't come to work today. He didn't come to work today. And you'd be wise to not come to work when everything goes to shit, because that's where they're moving the system. This is the system is being moved to a point where you are not going to be effective anymore. You're just not. No disrespect. But the only reason that all these Fox News people, the CBS people, and all these people that are on the other side or like Trump said the other day, I'm with you, law enforcement. Because he knows, well, there's a little bit more protection for a president than, that fine line breaks. You've got the military to Secret Service and those levels of law enforcement and protection to protect a bloodline puppet president. But the bottom line here is that the reason that they're doing it is because they know that, and they're firmly in the fiction. They are making six figures. Their lives are rich and materialistic, and so they will say, yeah, God bless the police, and look at them as they are saviors. But again, we're all just playing these roles, and there's a fine line between. There's just a fine line, and that line is being stressed. It's going to break, and that's what they want. That's what they want. So at the worst possible time, Donald Trump decides that he's going to give more land to the Jewish state, knowing full well that this is going to just be one of the worst decisions ever. And I guess the scarier part of it is that the entire world, with the exception of Israel and the United States, and I'm sure that there's some other ones that are sitting, like when you see Saudi Arabia stand up and say, this is bad news, they're totally in bed with everybody too. So for them to have a moral kind of awakening where this comes to play, where the capital going from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and then of course they're bombing and killing people in Yemen. Like they're no moral compass for anything. These people are. This is another regime that is allowed to do whatever they want. They're allowed to hurt their people, chop heads off, cut fucking hands off, do whatever they want to people, and the U.S. never says a damn thing. But Gaddafi, dead. Hussein, dead. Honduras, Venezuela, that's a different story now because they have their approved dictatorships, and then they have the ones where they're going to start that same old bullshit story about we have to go in there and do something. We're America. It's our responsibility. To turn another noun into another Libya. Flip South America turned it into an absolute cauldron of death, and then say we got to do something about it. Whereas most Americans have no idea the detriment that we are to the rest of the world. Because it's opposite day. Anything you hear on our news, 180 degrees away from that is the truth. Just liars. Liars and people that have no business talking morality or what is right and what is wrong with anyone. So, as I said, when feeding the homeless is illegal, when walking up to someone and saying, I see you're having a bad day. We've got some food here. Would you like to have some? I mean, that's one of the greatest things that you can do for someone. And I don't know what it is about me, but I can usually tell when somebody is just hit rock bottom. When you look at somebody on the street, somebody homeless, somebody with a sign. I saw some guy the other day. He was walking a little bit too, was walking hard, and he had his sign out, and I'm like, something just told me that this guy was a professional beggar. You could just see it. You could see right through them that they were just not legitimate. And that's the thing. They play the numbers, and they find, and then they know that there's 10% of the population that's going to look at that sign and say, let's give this person money. And you can just kind of tell. I know I've got that ability. I usually see, one example is, I don't know if you ever saw Groundhog Day, but he runs into that old guy. And at first he's like, get away from me and everything. And then he feeds the guy, and then he tries to really start helping him because he knows that he finally figures out that it's the right thing to do. And then the guy in that day that he relives, he's dead. The guy dies. And then as the day repeats, he feeds him, he gets him food, and there's nothing that he can do about it because the guy's going to die. And when he gets to that point where he realizes that there's nothing I can do, and then what he's done already was enough to feed the guy, give him a hot meal or whatever, and then got this cold, so I'm I'm not tearing up here, but what I'm saying is these are things that we should do without question. But there's no reason that we should give our consent to a system like this. Because when we give our consent, the system continues to be. And when 2008 came along and the banks that were too big to fail they didn't deserve to go forward. America didn't deserve to go forward. At least not the America that we know. Their fiction continued after they stole incredible sums of wealth and money. And they're doing it again, probably in this tax bill. They're doing it again. And if we think that these organizations, these corporations, are going to do good things with this money, with these tax breaks, I just don't think it's going to happen. And then they were saying, you should see something in your paycheck as early as January or February. We'll see. Because they're just thieves. They just steal. They steal. Basically in a month's time, taking probably about a week of your pay. Somewhere around a week, a quarter of what you make. And it depends, I mean, it's higher than that probably. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. What I would consider significant would be maybe 100 to 150 or more in a biweekly paycheck. But for them to sit there and say you're gonna get more of this, and then I mean every year when I do my taxes, it was always I would get maybe $600-700 back. So they would take 10,000 or more in taxes, and then they would give you less than 1,000 back. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous. It's outright theft. They're stealing from you. And apparently there's nothing you can do. Except get robbed. Just take it right on out. If America should fall, there's nothing. The people in it, most of the people in it, I know some good people. I do. And I'm sure you do. But if we get annihilated by fucking North Korea whatever. Because this whole American, experiment is a failure for us. It's very, very lucrative and very, very beneficial for some of the worst forms of life in Congress and in the Senate. And now with Trump, basically starting Armageddon, he's worthless too. He's an absolute worthless. Some of the things he says I agree with, but he's never going to go through. He's never going to be able to go through them. He's either lying or he's stupid, or he's just a straight up agent of the system. Or, in addition to that, they've got damning evidence of him with a child or something. So apparently there is, and my buddy from the health seminar, John, he is, as I said, he's like 80, but he does a lot of reading. He understands what's going on largely, which is great. And Christ, 80 years old, for a guy to be 80 years old and to have that kind of cognizant, really just a really, really awesome guy, a good guy. I'm glad that I started going to this health thing, and it's like a Sunday afternoon every 2 months or every 10 weeks or something like that. It's probably been about 9 of them so far. But John's a good guy, and what he's been pointing out is that behind the scenes there are people that they know that if they start doing things, they start arresting people, that it could really do a lot of damage. So what they're doing is, they're basically saying to some of these people, judges, that they know that are corrupt, that they know that have done really, really awful, shitty things. They're offering them a chance to right the ship. Like, they're not gonna, tar and feather these people. They're telling them, do the right thing, quit, right? Which kind of lends to the Eddie Munster, what's his name, the Speaker of the House, talking about retiring in 2018. I forget what his name is. Just another asshole. Just another douchebag. The guy that succeeded Boehner. And so they're saying that he could be one of the ones that, I kind of just equated it to what he was saying, that there's a lot of these politicians and people that are they're like, if you right the ship, if you do this and you do that, that's all we're asking of you, and then you just kind of move on and drop dead somewhere. But I don't know that it's that simple. But you hope that maybe some things are happening that are going to make the landing of this controlled collapse that we're seeing here in the American United States corporation. You hope that there's kind of a way to buffer the controlled collapse that we're seeing happen. Okay, doesn't matter what the Dow is. It doesn't matter what the Dow is. Russia and China and India and South Africa and Brazil are moving away from the dollar. They're moving away, going away from it. So if America is just going to be this, when I look at America, I see absolute freaks like Pelosi, Maxine Waters, and how these mentally ill or senile or a combination of the two are still in there talking and doing nothing, lying to people. Like Pelosi, we have to pass the bill to be able to see what's in the bill. That is like the absolute dumbest thing that you could ever say if you're trying to push a bill, the Obamacare. Why would you ever say you got to pass it before you're supposed to read it? But of course, the bills are 1,000, 2,000 pages filled with absolute fucking garbage, with microchipping on one page and some other heinous fucking act on another. And I don't want your medicine. I don't want anything to do with it in this American death camp. And I don't want to pay your fucking penalty if I don't get health care. And people still think this is health care. They still think that someone cares about their health. Unbelievable. What a joke that is. What a joke that is. So let's see. So, all right. So more on this. One should not need to file multiple forms and pay a fee to obtain a permit to give food to those in need who are willingly ready to accept it. The folks that don't comply know this. Matthew Short, with the aptly named organization Don't Comply, and dozen other volunteers from children to adults alike took the streets in Dallas this week to hand out food, sleeping bags, clothing, and tents to the area's less fortunate. Now, keep in mind that in Los Angeles, there is a growing homeless population. And I played that clip a number of months ago from the guy who was making these tiny houses, and the city just comes in and just wrecks everybody and destroys whatever hope that these people have left. So that's America. That's America. Right, so dozens of volunteers took to the streets, hand out food, as TFTP has reported. Oh, I'm sorry, the Free Thought Project has reported on numerous occasions. Oftentimes, police will swoop in and shut down those who would dare to defy the authority of the state and conduct charity without a permit. However, most organizations aren't like Don't Comply. As they took to the streets this week, many of them, members of the organization, carried their weapons. This was done not out of an act of intimidation, but merely to assert the rights as well as protect them. The resultant heavily armed group of do-gooders effectively staved off any attempt by police to shut down the charitable efforts. In talking with the Free Thought Project, Short tells us although police drove by fairly often, they never stopped and never attempted to intervene. All right, so success. We are not complying with a bad law today, Short said, who is the PR director of the organization, echoing the sentiment from all of those in attendance this year. Evidently, the city of Dallas believes that it's wrong or bad or unlawful for us to feed more than a certain number of people at a time. But during Christmas, we want to show love to the community and give these people a chance to survive the winter, whether it be with blankets or coats or just giving them a holiday party like today with all kinds of cookies and goodies, turkey and dressing, and the whole 9 yards. Dubbed Feed the Need 5, this was the 5th year in a row that the group has conducted the event. Below is the most amazing video to show the result of good people breaking bad news. Wait a minute, did I don't see the video here. Shit. There is no video. Maybe I'm blocking it. Let's see what we got here. Tracker and advertisement. Social media. Let me trust this site, and of course it's gonna open up all kinds of advertisement. Come on, where's the video? Nope, it didn't open it up. Anyway, I'm gonna block it again. Let's see here. Canadian pharmaceutical billionaire and wife found dead in Toronto in suspicious circumstances. The billionaire founder of Canadian pharmaceutical firm Apotex Inc., Barry Sherman, and his wife Honey were found dead in their home on Friday under circumstances the police described as suspicious. Police told reporters that they were investigating the deaths after finding the couple in their northeast Toronto home when responding to a medical call just before noon. The circumstances of their death appear suspicious, and we are treating it that way. Anyway, all right, so we've got a lot of programming here on UCY, and we got a lot of effort being put forward to bring this all, the alternative, alternative media, the alternative views, and if you can give to UCY around this time of year, that would help greatly with a lot of the expenses that you can imagine, that it takes to run a platform like this. So if you can, think about donating some of your resources to UCY. Let's see what we got here. We got the Carnegie Council calls for global governance to regulate geoengineering by Derek Brose. As the Carnegie Council calls for global governance to regulate climate engineering, advocates and opponents of the controversial technology prepare for a looming policy debate. On December 8th, the Carnegie Council released an essay calling for policymakers to invest resources into creating new forms of governance as a response to increased calls for climate engineering or geoengineering. The essay is part of a growing push for funding for research into the controversial science of modifying or engineering the climate and a recent push towards global government which could regulate the technology. Geoengineering is the deliberate and large-scale manipulation of weather and climate using a variety of technologies. One popular form of geoengineering promoted by scientists is known as solar radiation management, which involves spraying aerosols from planes equipped with particulates designed to reflect sun in an effort to combat anthropogenic global warming. Now, they've been doing that for years, and it's gotten incredibly more noticeable, I want to say, over the last 5 to 7 years, unless it's always been out there and I just became aware of it. But I've seen in other movies, in movies from the 80s, seeing lines, persistent lines that are not clouds, because clouds do not form in lines. Who's this? We are potentially at the dawn of an age of geoengineering. It is time for policymakers to start discussing whether geoengineering is to go forward, and if so, how. Right? So they've already been doing it. There's a movie out there called Snow. What the heck was it? Let me see. It's about a train. Let me see. Snowpiercer. Watch that. Here's the trailer. Let me see here.
There's chaos. 1,000 people in an iron box. 18 years I've hated a train. 18 years I've waited for this moment. This is your world. The train saved humanity.
The engine lasts forever.
The population must always be kept in balance.
I said sit down.
Passengers, eternal order flows from the sacred engine. We must occupy our preordained position. I belong to the front. You belong to the tail. No, don't. Keep your place.
Those bastards in the front think they own us.
We'll be different when we get there.
What you say?
We take the engine. And we control the world.
When is the time?
Soon.
This is disorder.
We're going to the front. Open the gate.
We know you well, Mr. Curtis. We've been watching you. Precisely 74% of you shall die. Everybody back!
I'm not a leader. You're already a leader. This is your destiny.
All right, so the point of this is that in the very beginning of this movie, you will see them talking. It'll just be the. Let me see. All right, so it says in a future where failed global warming experiment kills off all life, right? And the experiment is spraying the skies. You see it in the beginning of the movie. All right? In a future where a failed global warming experiment kills off all life on the planet except for a lucky few that boarded the Snowpiercer, a train that travels around the globe where a class system evolves. So basically they're saying that their experiment to stop global warming made shit worse, where it was just cold, completely freezing, which is a number of people have said that we're actually not warming, we're actually going into a mini ice age. But you can't tell the climate zombies that, and all the parrot thumbsuckers. But it's a great movie in the sense where it really kind of explains how the world works and how it would work on a train, with all the different segments, the front being the elite and the control center or the government, and it all trickles back. It all trickles back to the end where the lowest form of life, which is Chris Evans and a number of other, but it's really, really good. So check it out, Snowpiercer. It kind of explains how it all works. But more so, a failed global warming experiment kills off all life on the planet. Okay? And I believe that is what the part of the spraying is going to do. It's going to destroy large portions of food and just any number of different things. So, welcome to the nightmare, you thumb-sucking freaks. Anyway, stay tuned for Rock the Boat and Clint this afternoon, Behind the Woodshed with Hal, and all the other incredible programming here on UCY.tv. The holidays are here, unfortunately. They don't mean what they're supposed to mean to most, but here we are nonetheless. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday, Sunday. Have a good day.
One holistic system of systems. I will MK Ultra ya. Put the MK scope on ya. If the MK hits you, it's guaranteed to open ya. The 57mm Mark 110. 220 rounds a minute, try to stop them. Don't put that on your wish list, that's retarded babble. Protesters make the hit list soon as they start to rabble. They are nothing but fishes in the barrel. It doesn't have to be Christmas for a carol. Some decorate decorate with ornamental decorum. Some perform Shakanar on Hanukkah and Purim. That's where my job come in. I am a blessing to the mercenary for the corporation selling weapons to them. Any potential competitor step into them. I'm authorized to knock them out and stick a GPS into them. They want to sell uranium to Iran that's enriched. That's a bitch. Now we gotta teach a lesson to them.